All right, everyone, you are back with Urban Interests. Listen, I'm so excited because there is something that's happening that we have been pushing for a long time. A federal holiday of Juneteenth. We've been celebrating and everyone is up in arms, and so are we. So we have a special guest with us, Mr. Michael Imhotep. He is the founder of the African History Network, and he is also a talk show host, a researcher, a lecturer, and a writer. He has hosted national radio shows such as the Warren Ballantine Show, and yes, come on now, the Roland Martin Show, talking about big time. He is an avid writer, and his articles can be read at the AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and his articles can be published by, yourblackworld.net, culturecritic.com, financialjuneteenth.com, and blackthen.com. So come on here, Mr. Michael, because I'm excited about this. Let's talk about it.
All right, how you doing today, Angela?
I am doing absolutely wonderful. You know, President Biden signed that legislation making
right
federal holiday. And so House Majority Whip Jim Claiborne says that that was important. So explain to us the Juneteenth flag.
You said the Juneteenth flag?
Yes, there's a flag, isn't there?
Right. Well, the Juneteenth flag is a variation of the U.S. flag. So it's to recognize that, in 1776, 4th of July 4th, 1776, when the Declaration of Independence was signed by the first 4 of 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence, the majority of African Americans were still enslaved. So this is designed for us to have something of our own, and it's red, black, and green as well, which are the colors of the Pan-African flag, which was created by Marcus Garvey and the Universal Negro Improvement Association. It was adopted in August of 1920 at their international convention. More importantly than the flag is to understand Juneteenth and the history behind Juneteenth. And we have to correct the history, but also protect the history of Juneteenth, because it's going to be commodified, and we have to get out in front of that and shut this down. Walmart and these other stores should not be selling Juneteenth merchandise, because African Americans have been celebrating Juneteenth since 1866 in various ways, and African Americans have been selling that merchandise. Okay, so Juneteenth 1865, June 19th, 1865 commemorates when Major General Gordon Granger delivers what's known as General Order Number 3 to enslaved Africans in Galveston, Texas. All right. He arrived the day before. He arrives with about 2,000 troops. Majority of them are African-American troops. And they are enforcing the Emancipation Proclamation from January 1st, 1863. The war is, for all practical purposes, over now. It ends basically April 1865, when General Robert E. Lee surrenders to General Ulysses S. Grant. But Texas is more removed from the war. Major battles don't take place in Texas. You have slave owners who flee other Confederate states and go into Texas and take their slaves with them. So Texas is more removed, and they had not gotten the news that the war was over and the slaves were free. Now, the Emancipation Proclamation did not free the enslaved Africans, January 1st, 1863. This is why we have to correct the history, because there's a lot of misinformation floating around in media, especially white-owned media, dealing with this. If you go to loc.gov, which is the Library of Congress website, or archives.gov, which is the National Archives, and you actually read the Emancipation Proclamation. It was a military strategy from Lincoln, President Lincoln, and it states that the slaves in territories or states in rebellion are free as of January 1st, 1863. But slaves that are still in the border states, Maryland, Kentucky, Missouri, Delaware, they're still slaves. Slaves who were in territories that had seceded from the Union but came back under Union control, they're still slaves. The Emancipation Proclamation did not free the enslaved Africans. Okay, it's going to be the 13th Amendment, ratified December 6, 1865, with Georgia ratifying it. That's what's going to legally free the slaves. All right, so we can commemorate June 19th, when the majority of those Africans in Galveston got the message, and they're going through different parts of Texas delivering this message, okay? There's 250,000 enslaved Africans in Texas at the time. They're going through different parts of Texas. They're going to continue to deliver the message the next day to different parts of Texas. So June 19th was a date that was settled on to commemorate this, okay? But we have to get the history straight with this.
All right. Now, I'm glad that you are a historian, because I've heard some different variations of it as well. And so,
what were the different variations that you heard?
Well, that basically not that there were slaves who were still enslaved, that everyone became free. And so when
everyone became free when?
In 1865. So
as the Union troops are going through different areas of the Confederacy, taking back control of those lands, they're enforcing the Emancipation Proclamation. But this is a proclamation. They have to change the 13th. They have to change the Constitution. They have to amend the Constitution for slaves to legally be freed, because the Constitution sanctions slavery. Article 4, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution laid the foundation for the Fugitive Slave Acts of 1793 and 1850. Okay, so they have to amend the Constitution with the 13th Amendment, and then the 14th Amendment gives citizenship rights to African Americans. Then the 15th Amendment of 1870 guarantees the right to vote to African American men. Doesn't apply to women at this time, but African American men. So you're going through a process. You're going through a process of these territories being brought back into the Union, brought back under Union control. And these various states have to then vote, or their state legislatures have to then vote to ratify the 13th Amendment as well. That's part of the ratification process, or the process to amend the U.S. Constitution. Okay, to amend the U.S. Constitution, a bill has to pass both the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate by a 2/3 majority vote. Then it has to be ratified by 3/4 of the state legislatures by a 2/3 majority vote. All right, so this part is part of that ratification process as well for the 13th Amendment. So we can commemorate June 19th, 1865, but we have to understand the real history. And then Juneteenth connects us to voting rights. It connects us to the voter suppression tactics that take place after the 15th Amendment is ratified. It connects us to, in Texas, the Texas State Constitution of 1866, which has a purity of the ballot box clause in it, which leads to what are known as all-white primaries, like the all-white primaries of 1918. It connects us to the Mississippi State Constitution of 1890, where they voted to institute poll taxes and literacy tests. So it connects us to voting rights. It connects us to reparations, repairing the damage of slavery and the legacy of slavery, because when the emancipation takes place, when Africans are free, we're free largely without reparations, without giving land, giving tools, giving money, anything like that. And 40 acres and a mule, Special Field Order number 15, that land is largely going to be taken back by President Andrew Johnson, who succeeds Lincoln after Lincoln's assassinated in April of 1865, and he's going to give all that land back to the Confederacy for the most part. Okay, so all of this is, so people want to talk about reparations. Juneteenth is directly related to reparations. You're talking about the legacy of slavery. You're talking about what happened during Reconstruction, 1865 to 1877. So these two are they interconnect.
So, Mr. Michael, you have given us a thorough history lesson about, I don't know, maybe 5 to 7 minutes, maybe 10, but it's information that we definitely should know.
Absolutely.
The bill that passed unanimously in the Senate, however, there were 14 Republican lawmakers.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me. You're dealing with the white nationalist party. You're dealing with the party that many of them support the insurrectionists. You had 147 Republican traitors who voted not to certify the 2020 presidential election, okay, on January 6th. You had 147 who voted. Now, it's important for people to watch what's taking place. Go to govtrack.us, govtrack.us. You can track these bills in Congress and you can see who supports them. go to congress.gov and read these bills, okay? Congress.gov and read the bills. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed the House of Representatives March 3rd, 2021 by a vote of 220 to 212. 212 Republicans voted no on the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act after they sat there and cried and talked about how wrong it was what happened to George Floyd. No Republicans voted for the bill. The $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. No Republicans in the House of Representatives or the U.S. Senate voted for the bill. H.R. 40 is in the House of Representatives right now. It passed out of the House Judiciary Committee 2 or 3 months ago for the first time in 32 years, originally introduced by the Honorable John Conyers from the 13th Congressional District. Now is sponsored by Representative Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas, who also is the one who sponsored the Juneteenth bill from Texas, because this deals with Texas. Reparations and Juneteenth are interconnected. Anybody that lies to you and tells you they're not, they don't know what they're talking about. This is about 188 members of the House of Representatives that have signed on to support H.R. 40. None of them are Republicans. None of them are Republicans. So we can see the ideology of the party. So of the Republican Party, the GOP. So I'm neither Democrat nor Republican, but I sure as hell ain't stupid. I can see who consistently supports bills that benefit African Americans, and I can see who consistently vote against those bills and are obstructionists to those bills. So yeah, I'm not surprised it was 14. I'm surprised it wasn't more than 14, tell you the truth.
So Michael, what you have said is definitely true with regard. I say we need to stay woke. I think we're sleeping a little bit. I think we've gotten a little bit comfortable with what's happening and what's going on, because we know that there's over 90 voter suppression bills and or has been passed that's trying to make it harder for us to vote in the upcoming election.
Close to 400. It's close to 448 state legislatures that are being pushed by Republicans. It's close to 400 bills. It's about last count was about 381 bills in 48 state legislatures. See, we don't understand the white backlash that always comes after periods of perceived gains by African Americans. The end of Reconstruction, 1877, with Rutherford B. Hayes becoming the Republican candidate for president, becoming president, and the Republicans agreed with they agreed to compromise with the Democrats and remove the Union troops out of the South that were largely enforcing the rights of African Americans. And this is what ends Reconstruction. You see a backlash to the civil rights movement with the election of Richard Nixon, okay, and who ran on the platform of law and order. You see a backlash to 2 terms of President Barack Obama with the election of Donald Trump, who ran on the platform of law and order. You see a backlash with the attack on critical race theory and the attack on the 1619 Project, which was a backlash to the summer of 2020 and the Black Lives Matter protests and the protests over George Floyd. All this is always a backlash, okay? And we see this, and then they attack you, usually not in the streets. They attack you in the courts and they attack you in the legislatures because they're dealing with law. Many of us don't understand law. We don't understand how to perceive these attacks coming, because I knew it was coming, and we don't understand how to defend against these attacks. We have to understand political self-defense.
All right, I will agree with you on that. We can go into this a little bit further. However, we're kind of wrapping up with you, so I want to bring it back to the celebration of this particular moment. So yes. How should we celebrate, African American families celebrate this monumental time? And are there any events in the area that you can share with our audience?
Well, there are events taking place all over Detroit. I'm actually in Atlanta right now because I'm here for the 3-day Juneteenth Festival in Atlanta, and I'll be speaking there Saturday and Sunday at the Centennial Olympic Park. But you can probably Google Juneteenth Detroit. There are celebrations taking place. This is a time for us to study the history, not just commemorate those enslaved Africans getting the message. And it's also very important to understand some slave owners in Texas kept the message away from slaves and kept them enslaved for an additional year. One of them was a white woman named Martha Gibbs, because the involvement of white women in slavery is much greater than we thought. Professor Stephanie E. Jones Rogers, in her book in 2019, I think it was, or 2018, called They Were Her Property, details this, how from 1850 and 1860, about 40% of slave owners were white women, okay? So we need to come together as family, commemorate what happened in 1865, study the history, correct the history, use that as a foundation to give us our values, our interests, and our principles. Use that to empower ourselves economically and politically. So this is a very, very important time, and continue to push for reparations. We have to leverage this to push to repair the damage, to push to get these other bills passed through Congress as well.
All right. We're going to drop the mic right there because I think.
All right. And visit my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com also.
Okay. Say it again because I don't want to overtalk you.
Oh, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com.
All right. Thank you so much for being
Thanks,
here.
Angela.
Appreciate you. And hey, success on that speech on tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that was Angela Matthews of Urban Interest interviewing yours truly. That was from June 18th, 2021, dealing with the Juneteenth Federal Holiday. Now, as I was playing, I was showing some articles, and I was showing this article here from Politico.com. Because I hear a whole lot of people talking about reparations. Then I ask them, explain to me how many votes it takes to get a bill passed in the House of Representatives, and they can't tell me. I hear crickets. Then I ask them, tell me how many votes it takes to get a bill passed in the U.S. Senate. They can't tell me. I asked this question to about 50 people in Atlanta when I was speaking. Nobody could tell me. One person said a majority. Well, yeah, it takes a majority, but in the Senate, for most bills, you need at least 60 votes. There's only 50 Republicans. I mean, there's only 50 Democrats. That means you need 10 Republicans to vote for the bill. You do realize in the U.S. Senate, for everybody, so this is why when people say reparations now, my response is reparations how? Explain to me, how do you get it? You do realize you need 10 Republicans in the U.S. Senate to vote for any reparations bill, including H.R. 40, which is to study reparations and the impact slavery and Jim Crow segregation and what happened after slavery has had on African Americans, and to make recommendations. You need 10 Republicans to vote for that. Where are you going to get them from? I mean, the black Republican, Senator Tim Scott, has already said he's not voting for reparations. If the black Republican is not going to vote for it, how many white Republicans you think going to vote for it in the Senate? Keep in mind, no Republicans in the Senate voted for the American Rescue Plan, and that was going to help white people that put them in office. So this article here, now Biden is saying the same thing that I've been saying for months. The votes don't exist in the Senate. When I had Cam Howard right here on this show, National Male Co-Chair of NCOBRA, National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America. And we talked about, I had him on before the hearing took place in the House Judiciary Committee, where H.R. 40 passed out of the House Judiciary Committee for the first time in 32 years. That was about April of this year, something like that. And we talked about it. And he said that after it passes out of the House Judiciary Committee, then it has to go for a full vote on the floor. He said I think he said maybe they had about 180 sponsors or something like that. The article from Politico.com says there's 188 co-sponsors in the House of Representatives, 188 co-sponsors, 188 members of the House have signed on to support H.R. 40. Okay, I'll show you that in just a minute, because as the interview was playing, I was going through showing you all, and it's actually 190 have signed on now. They're all Democrats, no Republicans in the House of Representatives, including the 2 black Republicans. Burgess Owens, former football player out of Utah. Now, he may not have chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, but he sure acts like he does. Burgess Owens testified at 2 hearings in the House of Representatives regarding reparations. He testified against reparations. He said black people don't need reparations. This is Burgess Owens. You think he's going to vote for it? Then Representative Donalds out of Florida, Brian Donalds, I think it is. He was interviewed by Roland Martin of Roland Martin Unfiltered. All the bills that African Americans are advocating for, he doesn't support. He either voted against them or will vote against them. And he voted for Juneteenth, but he said he ain't voting for H.R. 40. He's not voting for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. He voted not to certify the 2020 presidential elections. Okay. He voted against the American Rescue Plan, $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan that's going to help white people in Florida that voted for his ignorant ass. All the bills African Americans are for, he's against. I went to his Twitter page. I said, I'm listening to this dude. And he's married to a white woman. I called it. I could listen to what he was saying. I called it. I went to his Twitter page. Whoop, right there. Whoop, there it is. So Biden is telling, so read this article here. This is the same thing I've been saying on this show for months. It's a math game. We don't understand math. Biden privately tells lawmakers not to expect much on reparations legislation. Why? He's talking about the Senate. He's saying the votes don't exist in the Senate. What the hell? That's what I've been telling you. This is exactly what I've been saying. Show me 10 Republicans in the Senate that going to vote for reparations. They don't exist. So what does this mean? This means you have to vote more people into Congress, into the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate who support reparations, and vote people out who don't support reparations. It's a math game. We created math, but don't understand math. Then it goes through and it talks about, read this full article here. Because I told you, I'm going to tell you the truth about reparations. I ain't going to lie to you. There's a lot of people trying to hustle a lot of people on reparations. Make them think they're about to get a check at the end of the month. No, you're not. I told you this. We have to understand the process. We don't understand the process. There's 188 co-sponsors. Now it's 190 because I just checked at where? Congress.gov. That's where you go to check this stuff. That's where you go to read the bills and you can see who sponsored the bills. Now it's 190 sponsors. They're all Democrats. No Republicans in the House support this. I can tell you right now, no Republicans in the Senate gonna vote for this. Now, when I had Cam Howard here on the show, Cam was honest. Cam said, look, we're closer than ever in the House, but we still got to get it passed. We still don't have it takes 218 votes in the House to get it passed. He said we have to get to 218. He said in the Senate is an uphill battle. He was honest. He said in the Senate it's an uphill battle. Yes, it is. It ain't happening in the 117th Congress. The earliest you're going to get any reparations bill passed in the Senate is going to be 2023. That's after the 2022 midterm election, because you're not going to get 10 votes from Republicans for a reparations bill, period. Now, you can hallucinate a reality that don't exist if you want to. I'm not going to lie to you. I'll tell you the truth. All right, so read this full article here, okay? And stop dealing with simple Simon ass nonsense on social media for people who have no clue what they're talking about, who are not going to be honest and deal with the facts with you. So I showed you all that, and we dealt with Congress.gov, all that stuff, right? Now, Juneteenth flag. There was one with the red, black, and green and all that. But there's an official Juneteenth flag. CNN has an article dealing with this. Now, this one here, I don't see a whole lot. And when I was in Atlanta, I ain't see this Juneteenth flag. This is probably popular in Texas, where Juneteenth started. The Juneteenth flag is full of symbols. Here's what they mean. Read this full article, because I don't have time to get deep through this. But just to highlight, the flag is the brainchild of activist Ben Hythe, founder of the National Juneteenth Celebration Foundation, NJCF, National Juneteenth Celebration Foundation. Hythe created the flag in 1997 with the help of collaborators, and Boston-based illustrator Lisa Jean Graff brought their vision to life. Okay, the flag was revised in the year 2000 into the version we know today, according to the National Juneteenth Observation Foundation. 7 years later, the date, quote, June 19th, 1865, was added to the flag, commemorating the day Union Major General Gordon Granger rode into Galveston, Texas, and told enslaved Africans of their emancipation. So very quick. So the star, so if you look at the flag, you see a star, you see a starburst, and you see the flag is red, white, and blue. So when we look at the star, what does the star symbolize? The white star in the center of the flag has a dual meaning. Hate said. For one, it represents Texas, the Lone Star State. It was in Galveston in 1865, where Union soldiers informed the country's remaining enslaved Africans that under emancipation issued 2 years earlier, they were free. Okay. Now, they're going to continue to deliver that message even the next day. There's about 250,000 enslaved Africans in Texas alone. Like I said, some are not going to be free to the next season, the next year, to 1866. But the star also goes beyond Texas, representing the freedom of African Americans in all 50 states. The star burst surrounding the star. The bursting outline around the star is inspired by a nova, a term that astronomers use to mean a new star. On the Juneteenth flag, this represents a new beginning for the African Americans of Galveston, Texas, and throughout the land. And then you see an arc. The arc, the curve extends across the width of the flag, represents a new horizon, the opportunities and promise that lay ahead for African Americans. The colors, red, white, and blue. The red, white, and blue represents the American flag, a reminder that slaves and their descendants were and are Americans. Now, if you read The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence by Dr. David Imhotep, we know that the original Americans were African people. We know the original Americans were African people, number one. Number two, if you look at the 1828 Noah Webster Dictionary and you look at the word American, we know that the term American originally applied to the Aboriginal and copper-colored races of the Americas, and this is who the Europeans refer to. This is what the Europeans refer to them as Americans. Originally, the term American did not refer to white people. It referred to African people and Native Americans in the Americas when white people found them. So African people are the original Americans. We have to understand the history. And like I said, we were in this land tens of thousands of years before Native Americans came into existence. These are things that I deal with in my online course. This is why I have Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. This is why I have him come speak to the class. We have to get the history straight. Our history didn't start here in 1619. That's an insult to African people to lie to us and teach us that our history started in this country 1619. Yes, 1619 in Virginia did happen. Yes, the White Lion pirate ship happened. And those Africans from Angola were captured by the Portuguese, about 350 of them. And then they're going to be hijacked around Veracruz, Mexico by English pirates. And they're going to be put on two English pirate ships, the White Lion and the Treasurer. And they come into Virginia. Yeah, that happened. But what about tens of thousands of years of history before that happened? This is what we have to understand. So we have to do with a chronology of history. So we got this here. The red, white, and blue represents the American flag, a reminder that slaves and their descendants were and are Americans. Well, we're the original Americans. Let's keep it 100. We are the original Americans. June 19th, 1865 represents the day enslaved people. Okay. People in Galveston became Americans under law. That's not true. You need the 13th Amendment to change, to amend the Constitution. That's false right there. This is why the history has to be corrected. I'm looking at this incorrect history in white control media. Okay. You had the Emancipation Proclamation, but under the U.S. Constitution still sanctions slavery. It's not till December 6, 1865 that the Constitution is ratified, and it's adopted December 18th, 1865. All right, read this here. The Juneteenth flag is full of symbols. Here's what they mean. Okay, CNN.com. There's other information you can read about that. But that's something that I can put my hands on quickly. Now, read this here from Congress.gov. Then what HR 40. You can read what HR 40 is. Okay, it's more than just a study. It's also dealing with recommendations and understanding the impact of slavery and a legacy of slavery. Okay, read the co-sponsors. Check and see if your member of Congress has signed on to co-sponsor it. If not, call them and ask why. Why not? Now there's a piece from time.com. Time.com, and also my lecture dealing with the history of Juneteenth is available at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We have it in digital download format and DVD format. It's right on the homepage of our website. It's 2 hours and 29 minutes. I was trying to keep it to 2 hours and 30 minutes. End up 2 hours, 29 minutes. So doing pretty good. Juneteenth history, Emancipation Day, but not Independence Day. We never got our 40 acres and a mule. Dr. King's Poor People's Campaign. We're coming to get our check. I did this June 16th, 2021. It's in digital download format and DVD. It's available right now at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. It's right on the homepage. If you register for the online course that we have starting up Sunday, July 4th, you'll get this digital download of this lecture free. If you register for my online course that's starting up Sunday, July 4th, you get a digital download of this lecture for free. Now, A lot of people are saying, oh, we ain't asked for a Juneteenth holiday, blah, blah, blah. I'm not sure when you took a poll. I'm not sure how much of the history of Juneteenth you've actually studied, but that's false also. The fight to make Juneteenth a federal holiday dates back to the 1960s. So let's look at this article here from time.com, Time magazine. I think I have a subscription to Time. I have so many subscriptions. I think they forced me to get a subscription. So that's one of the reasons why I use New York Times, Washington Post so much, because I pay them each month. I mean, I monitor about 35 different news sources on a daily basis, but some of them I have to pay. Washington Post, New York Times, one of them. I think I paid time.com also. I have so many subscriptions. Activists are now this is from 2020. This article here is from June 6th. This is from June 17th, 2020. That's when this article originally came out. Okay. Because they tried to get Juneteenth passed in the Senate in 2020. Activists are pushing to make Juneteenth a national holiday. Here's the history behind the fight. All these dumbass memes floating around, they don't tell you this history. Most likely because the people that make the memes don't know the history. First question I ask is, do these people live in the United States of America? Okay. Now, if we look at this piece here, I want to scroll down. The movement to make Juneteenth a national holiday. In the 1960s, the civil rights movement brought a new push. Civil rights movement brought a new push. What the hell is that? The civil rights movement brought a new push for America to live up to those ideas. And with it came a renewed awareness of Juneteenth. One turning point in awareness came in the aftermath of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., assassinated April 4th, 1968. At the time of his death, much of Dr. King's work focused on economic justice. At the time of his death, much of Dr. King's work focused on economic justice. Okay. Now, he ain't just come to the realization that we need economic justice. That means you haven't read his books. He wrote 5 books. Okay. Now, he was focused on economic justice, and he was in the middle of planning a poor people's campaign march for the coming months. After he was assassinated, the work went on, including via a Solidarity Day rally held in Washington, D.C. that Juneteenth. Organized by Dr. King's disciple, Ralph Abernathy, the rally, which boasted more than 50,000 participants, capped off about 6 weeks during which activists lived in an encampment called Resurrection City to raise awareness of inequality. Wiggins believes that the success of the rally helped inspire participants to host Juneteenth celebrations in their own communities in the years and decades that followed. It was during this period that the modern effort to make Juneteenth a national holiday developed. You're talking about the late 1960s. It was during this period that the modern effort to make Juneteenth a national holiday developed. Amid a widespread push to raise awareness of Black history, many felt that the American calendar ought to reflect the past. The fight over a national Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, which would first be celebrated in 1986, was underway, and some felt that Juneteenth was also a crucial part of the story. You're talking about 1986. People ain't just start fighting for Juneteenth. Opal Lee has been fighting for years, 94 years old, member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. People ain't just start fighting to make Juneteenth a federal holiday. Some African Americans just found out about Juneteenth last year. Let's just be honest. So they think it's something new. No, it's not. Thanks to the efforts of State Representative Al Edwards, known as Mr. Juneteenth, Texas became the first state to make Juneteenth a state holiday in 1980. Al Edwards died in April of 2020. Okay, those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching. We're going to keep broadcasting for a few more minutes. Also, if you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App. Also through PayPal, paypal.me / the AHN Show, paypal.me / the AHN Show. We're here 6 days a week. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting. With Juneteenth, we have to correct the history and we have to protect the history. We have to correct the history and we have to protect the history. All right, now. I want to go to time.com. Let me go back to this here. So in 1994, a group of ministers in New Orleans founded the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation. The National Juneteenth Observance Foundation, in the wake of a period of uproar over police brutality that echoes today. Around that time, it was being reported that the majority of police brutality complaints in the U.S. were directed at New Orleans, per a draft of a 1992 Department of Justice study. Okay, 1992. As Reverend John Mosley, one of the co-founders, tells Time magazine, quote, "We were inspired by the horrific incidents such as the videotaped beating of Rodney King and the mistreatment of Black people by police in New Orleans and others around the country," end quote. We were inspired by the horrific incidents such as the beating of Rodney King, the videotaped beating of Rodney King, and the mistreatment of Black people by police in New Orleans and others around the country. Now, does this sound like shucking and jiving? Does this sound? I mean, it helps if you do a Google research. It helps if you do like a 5-minute Google search. Today, every state except North Dakota. Now, this article is from June 2020. Today, every state except North Dakota, South Dakota, and Hawaii has some sort of Juneteenth observance, according to the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation. Over the last 25 years, the group has developed a network of organizers in each state and advocates that Congress may, over the last 25 years, the group has developed a network of organizers in each state and advocates that Congress made Juneteenth a national observance, like Flag Day, or an official federal holiday like Thanksgiving. This is over the last 25 years. People didn't just start pushing for Juneteenth to become a federal holiday in 2020 or this year. Who's making these dumbass memes? Why don't they start citing these sources for their research? But this fight goes back to the late 1960s after Dr. King was assassinated and the Poor People's Campaign. Continues into the 1970s. This isn't new. It's just new to you. This isn't new. To help promote the holiday, the group created a Juneteenth flag with the broad red stripe to represent the blood Black people shed to create the country, and a white star over the blue horizon, guiding them towards freedom in the future. Quote, "We wanted to use June." Now, everybody, somebody need to make a meme out of this. Somebody make a meme out of this right here. Quote, "We wanted to use Juneteenth to call attention to the world that things are not right and Black people are people too. And we want equal treatment for being people too," end quote, Mosley says. Quote, "It was not just to have a party and have a good time. It's a rallying cry for us," end quote. It's not just to party and have a good time. It's a rallying cry for us. Now, Cliff Robinson, who in 1997 started the website Juneteenth.com as a clearinghouse for information on Juneteenth celebrations, says that the growth of the internet in the 1990s and social media in the 2000s has made Americans much more aware of the holiday. Its history became part of the national conversation when Ralph Ellison's posthumously published second novel entitled Juneteenth, with a key plot point occurring during a Juneteenth celebration, came out ahead of the holiday in 1999. Certain TV shows like Blackish and Atlanta have run Juneteenth episodes too. But Cliff Robinson says nothing so far generated momentum for the holiday the way news of the Trump rally did in 2020, when Trump was going to have a rally in 2020 around Juneteenth. Then Trump claimed credit for making Juneteenth popular. It was already popular. Now, some more people found out because just of all the media talk. And this was during the pandemic. So you at the same time, you have the social justice movement that's exploding and the protests in the streets surrounding the killing of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor. And people are at home during the stay-at-home order. So they're watching TV or they're out in the streets protesting. Opal Lee of Fort Worth, Texas, the 93-year-old, she's 94 years old now, Juneteenth advocate who started Make Juneteenth a National Holiday in 2020 petition on change.org, says the coronavirus stay-at-home orders have allowed time for the significance of the protests and Juneteenth to finally sink in. She said, quote, I hate to say the pandemic helped, but people have had to stay home and they are doing thinking and noticing that they didn't have time to do. Read the rest of this article. I just want to give you some background information, because I see people circulating a whole bunch of nonsense that can easily be proven false with a 5-minute Google search. Read this article here. This is from June 2020. Activists are pushing to make Juneteenth a national holiday. Here's the history behind the fight. This fight goes back decades. They ain't just, come on. Come on. If you don't know, just say so. So read this article here. I saw a segment on MSNBC discussing this, and they put the number at 62% of Americans. I'm trying to find that piece. I think it was on Ali Velsh's show on MSNBC this past weekend. But this article from NBC News has a link to the actual study from actual poll from Gallup. It was a Gallup survey. Okay. So look at this here. Most Americans know little or nothing about Juneteenth, poll finds. Academics believe that increases in the number of Americans familiar with the holiday, which commemorates the end of slavery in the U.S., may be a result of last summer's protests against racism. And there was an increased focus on Juneteenth in June 2020 because of the Black Lives Matter protests, the protests surrounding George Floyd, all that. Okay. Now, as we said before, the majority of enslaved Africans in Texas found out that they were free, but there are going to be some that are held for another year in Texas, enslaved. The word was kept from them, okay, by their slave owners. More than 60% of Americans know nothing at all or only a little bit about Juneteenth, according to a new Gallup survey. The 37% of respondents who reported having, quote, a lot or some knowledge of the holiday may be an increase from previous years, pollsters and academics believe, reflecting growing awareness after last summer's summer 2020 protests against racism and police brutality. The survey, the results of which were released on Tuesday, found that nearly, so this was last Tuesday, that'd be Tuesday, June 15th, Tuesday, June 15th, because this article came out Wednesday, June 16th. The survey, the results of which were released on Tuesday, June 15th, found that nearly half supported teaching the history of Juneteenth in public schools. There was less support, 35%, for making June 19th a federal holiday. So 35% supported making June 19th a federal holiday. 50%, almost 50% supported teaching the history of Juneteenth in public schools. But only 25% of respondents said they were opposed to the idea. Now, on Tuesday, June 15th, the U.S. Senate unanimously approved a bill that would make Juneteenth a legal holiday. The House passed the bill by a wide margin the next day, with 14 Republicans opposed to it. Keep in mind, also, 62 Republicans voted against the COVID-19 Hate Crime Act, which is in the House of Representatives. 62 voted against it in the House, which is ostensibly known as the Anti-Asian Hate Crime Bill. It is not specific to Asian Americans. That's why you have to go to Congress.gov and read these bills. Now, also, the vote in the Senate, the way it passed in the Senate is was not a formal vote. there was no objection to it in the Senate. In 2020, Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, whose dumbass went to a Juneteenth celebration after what went down in the Senate, after it passed the Senate for Juneteenth, he went to one and he got booed, rightfully so, because he blocked the bill in 2020. A formal vote in the Senate on June 15th did not take place. What happened was there was no opposition to the bill, so it was able to pass the Senate, but there was no formal yay or nay vote in the Senate. People have to keep in mind that's how it passed the Senate. There was no formal yay or nay vote. It just passed with no opposition. Okay, there was a formal yay or nay vote in the House of Representatives. So the 14 who opposed it are on record voting against it. You can go to govtrack.us and you can see the 14, and there are articles written about this. You can see the 14 Republicans, all white men, who voted against making Juneteenth a federal holiday. They're all Trump supporters also. Now, on Tuesday, the Senate unanimously approved a bill that would make Juneteenth a legal holiday. All right. Now, also known as Emancipation Day, Black Independence Day, or Jubilee Day, Juneteenth celebrates the day in 1865 when Major General Gordon Granger, Union General, informed enslaved African Americans in Galveston, Texas, that the Civil War had ended and that they were free. Okay. Majority of them are going to be freed, but keep in mind, it's going to be the 13th Amendment ratified December 6, 1865. When Georgia ratifies the 13th Amendment, that's what's going to legally free the slaves. It's not the Emancipation Proclamation of January 1st, 1863, which is an executive order from Abraham Lincoln. That's not what's going to legally free the slaves. You have to amend the Constitution to legally free them. Now, the poll is the first poll Gallup conducted about Juneteenth. It was organized by the Gallup Center on Black Voices as part of a continuing effort to understand the public perception of and support for the broader inclusion of Black history in American history, a year after a deep racial reckoning in the country. Camille Lloyd, the center's director, said, okay, this poll was organized by the Gallup Center, the Gallup Center on Black Voices as part of a continuing effort to understand the public perception of and the public support for the broader inclusion of African American history in American history, a year after a deep racial reckoning in the country. Now, the study, which was conducted May 18th to May 23rd, 2021, May 18th to May 23rd, 2021, on a random sample of 3,572 adults, a random sample of 3,572 adults who self-administered web surveys. This study from May 18th to May 23rd found that results slanted around race and age. And it's understandable. 69% of African American respondents say they had a lot or some knowledge of Juneteenth, compared with 31% of white respondents. Okay, 31% of white respondents said they had a lot of knowledge or some knowledge, whereas 69% of African American respondents said they had a lot of knowledge or some knowledge. Younger adults were also more likely to know about Juneteenth than older adults. Younger adults were also more likely to know about Juneteenth than younger adults. Now, the margin of sampling error for a sample of this size is plus or minus 2 percentage points, according to Gallup, which is pretty low for surveys, actually. Reading between the numbers, the Gallup Center on Black Voices found that awareness is a critical piece in whether a person is supportive of celebrating and teaching Juneteenth, and the focus should be on maintaining and cultivating that awareness, said Ms. Lloyd. That's Camille Lloyd, the center's director. Okay. Awareness is a critical piece in whether a person is supportive or of celebrating and teaching Juneteenth, and the focus should be on maintaining and cultivating that awareness. Now, Juneteenth has been celebrated since the 19th century. It's been celebrated since 1866, to be precise. It's been celebrated since 1866 in Texas. And then it's going to spread throughout the country as African Americans spread throughout the country during the Great Migration, etc. It's going to spread. There are periods of times where it dies down, periods of times where it's more popular. It becomes Emancipation Day becomes a state holiday in Texas in 1980. Now, Juneteenth has been celebrated by African Americans since the 19th century, since 1866, and its broader popularity has waxed and waned throughout American history, according to Brenda Elaine Stevenson, a historian specializing in African American history and the history of the Southern United States. Dr. Brenda Elaine Stevenson said, quote, "We see spikes in Juneteenth popularity. At the same time, we see focus on Black life and the position of Black people in American society." Okay. She said that in addition to the late summer's protests, the pandemic's disproportionate effect on African Americans and the recent combative debates on the study of race in public schools and universities has contributed to a broader interest, not only in learning about the experience of African Americans, but in finding ways to celebrate it as well. Quote, Juneteenth has now had a rebirth in terms of people focusing on it, celebrating it, wanting to know what it is and wanting to know what it signifies and how it relates to this long arc of racial divide and progress, or not progressing in our country, Dr. Stevenson said. All right, read the rest of this here. Oh, it goes on to talk about how during protests in 2020, summer 2020, over 160 Confederate symbols were removed from public spaces or renamed after the death of George Floyd more than any in any other year. Read the rest of this article here from the New York Times. Most Americans know little or nothing about Juneteenth, poll finds. This is from June 16, 2021 by Isabel Grulin Paz for New York Times. All right, look, we're out of time here, way over time. If you like this type of information, also you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. We're here 6 days a week. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting. And you can also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and support us there as well. Be sure to register for my new online course that starts up Sunday, July 4th, 2021, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And this is a 10-week online course that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history and what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. So we have the information on the homepage of our website. And when you scroll down and click on the link, it takes you to our page on Learn World, and just click on enroll. And you can, as soon as you enroll, you can start watching the content. And there's a bonus of classes 1 through 7 from the current course that's going on right now. And we're going to enroll you in that Saturday class and enroll you in the new Sunday class that starts up Sunday, July 4th. Okay. The 4th of July. All right. We have to get out of here. Remember, right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace.